Welcome to our Shield of the Sun video. This is Bruce Lee and the Martial Arts, part 13. If you haven't watched the other videos, please go back and watch them so you know where we're at. Only Jesus can open our eyes to the truth when we see it like he is seeing it. When Showdown in Little Tokyo impressed the Hollywood producers, many companies wanted to sign Brandon to a contract to work with them, where he would make movies for them. At this time, Brandon hired his sister Shannon as his manager and acting agent. Brandon signed on with 20th Century Fox, in which he was contracted to do 3 movies for them as the script comes up for it. The first movie was a film called Rapid Fire. The story of this film and the kind of character Brandon played came eerie close to his real life. The story featured his character as suffering from the loss of his father, as his father was killed for standing up for his rights. The triads in the movie commits a massacre, and now Brandon's career is involved in a life-threatening situation because he saw too much. Brandon's character throughout the movie seeks to understand why his father died, and in several scenes he is coping with his father's loss, expressing bitterness, confusion, pain, doubts, and regrets. These are actually Brandon's real feelings coming out on film in this character. Brandon Lee's acting performance was top-notch, and the film featured very innovative action scenes involving weaponry, setups, and shootouts. Brandon Lee performed all of his stunts in the movie, and his martial arts skills were at peak performance throughout the movie. He simply took command in this movie, and he pulled it off in an impressive way. The film was mostly shot in the streets of Chicago in the early 90s, and it was shown in American theaters all over the U.S. to good reviews for an action movie. Brandon was being hailed as being far better than Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal combined. And in many ways, when you factor in Brandon's natural acting skills and training, they were right. Rapid Fire did not gross over $100 million and then some like so many other action films, but it did make enough to make Brandon Lee an up-and-coming star with a bright future. But Satan wanted his marker, as he called it, and the wheels of Satan's plans were turning against Brandon. When 20th Century Fox could not come up with the second script fast enough, in the meantime 2 companies offered him parts in a movie. One was Universal Pictures, who had big plans for Brandon Lee, even though Brandon didn't even know about them. Universal Pictures had a script and production together to do a big-budget movie on the life of his father, Bruce Lee. They wanted Brandon to play his father in the movie Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, and they offered him nearly $10 million to play him. The second role Brandon was offered was for a lot less money, and it was for a film company that was a subsidiary company created by Disney Pictures. This company was called Miramax, and they were a studio opening up in North Carolina to bring the Hollywood brand to the Carolina area, to have another place to make Hollywood movies and engage in the devil's business like white slavery and snuff films and satanic worship. The role this film company was offering was the lead role to play a comic book superhero of a dark nature called the Crow. Brandon, because of the money and fame to be made, unlike the Hollywood version of the story, he was willing to play his father at first. But in order for Brandon to receive such a role that would make him a bona fide worldwide Hollywood movie star, Universal Pictures wanted Brandon to join the Baphomet and submit to mind control programming. The reason why Brandon Lee refused the role in Dragon, the Bruce Lee story was because he refused to sign on with the Baphomet, having the same convictions like his father, who refused to join the triads. Brandon Lee did not like the idea of someone taking advantage of him and doing that to him. Brandon was well aware of the Baphomet requirements and the mind control programming, after having been close friends to actors and actresses who went through it and are screwed up mentally as a result. Brandon then decided to take the role that would be more of a challenge to play, and he agreed to sign on to play the lead role as a ghost superhero in the Illuminati-sponsored movie The Crow. The Crow was originally not supposed to be a snuff movie that it became to be, but it was supposed to be a regular action superhero movie with a gothic look and feel. The challenge in playing the Crow is that Brandon would have to originate a whole personality and dramatic look to bring this character to life. It would require someone with good originality and natural talent to be able to successfully pull off this character. Brandon Lee not only pulled it off, he rose above the challenge and completely brought the character to life in a very clever and gifted way. Satan was not happy with Brandon telling him no, and he still wanted his sacrifice. Soon Disney Pictures, regarding their Illuminati people, got orders to have Brandon killed, and to make the film's energy from his death to cause a sensation of attraction to the mystique of the film. The fact is that the film The Crow was being made by Satanists involved in the movies industry's evil occult satanic side very extensively. The cast were all deep satanic occultists who have killed before, just to get the small parts they play, and the director had just newly sold his soul for a movie project, and so he was willing to kill for it, and the crew was hired specifically by the Illuminati, so that they would be informed of what was going to happen and to make sure it happens. The studio was owned by the Illuminati, and it was closed off and built in the middle of nowhere in thick Carolina country. Security was also Illuminati, and they made sure no one got near the set. The producers of The Crow were told by their parent bosses that Brandon Lee was to be killed, and to ensure the film's money return, they will make Brandon a legend through the media to associate his death with the mystique of his father's death, to make people very curious and drawn to see the film called The Crow. So now the director had a snuff film on his hands rather than a real film, and he was promised that if he went along with it, he would get another film. The plan was to have Brandon killed in a ritual way that would be ceremonial to Lucifer, since the Illuminati were the ones sponsoring the film. The scene they set him up in was a scene in his apartment that was set designed to resemble Lucifer's all-seeing eye. Brandon's character was supposed to be killed by having his arm stretched out like Christ on the cross, and then 2 bullets enter his chest, killing him. The plan was to use a real gun and make Brandon think that the guns were fake, and to take that real gun and put a bullet into his heart and kill him. The actor who actually fired the shot that killed Brandon was named Michael Mancine, who played Funboy, was in on it, and he purposefully murdered Brandon Lee for a career in Hollywood, as he was working for the Illuminati. In fact, all the actors in that scene knew beforehand that they were going to kill Brandon Lee near the end of the filming of the movie. On that day, Brandon Lee was just within 2 weeks of wrapping up the film, and he was in good spirits. The scene called for him to play severely injured, while the actors, one of them playing Funboy and the other playing Top Dollar, were to stand in a spot that was directly under a pyramid shape, while the other 2 actors hold out Brandon's arm in a Christ-like way, where at this moment the actors playing Top Dollar and Funboy pull out their guns and shot Lee in the chest. The gun of the actor playing Funboy was the real gun with the real bullet in it, and he knew it, and he took that gun and aimed it at Brandon's heart, and he fired into it, killing Brandon in a matter of seconds as they filmed it, and watched Brandon Lee bleed to death, having things set up to frame an accident. Like his father, the Illuminati government agents who control media and local governments like the police, firehouses, hospitals, etc., all falsified Brandon's death report and autopsy. They told you Brandon died in the hospital when in fact he died right there on the set. They told you probably one of the most dumbest accidents in movie history took place on the set of The Crow, that some faulty prop gun managed to fire a small object that somehow, that they won't explain, got stuck in the prop gun, and that small object killed Brandon. And also, they didn't even falsify the reports accurately, because there is an actual second report that says that what killed Brandon was a real bullet that also somehow out of the air got placed in a prop gun that was not designed, nor could it fit a real bullet. Also, in the first report, Brandon died at the hospital, and in the second report, Brandon died on his way to the hospital, so which one is it? How about neither? The story of Brandon's death, according to police and media and the hospital, is completely stupid, and it does not make any sense. Prop guns are checked before they are used, and they are also checked to see if anything is stuck in them, so that the prop gun could work properly. Action scenes are expensive, and so they are not only very thorough about checking the prop guns, they are very serious about these prop guns working accurately, because the entire scene depends on them. Also, if something was stuck in it, they would have noticed it quickly. But let's say for fun and stupidity, they didn't notice it. The prop gun does not produce the lead force to shoot an object with that kind of deadly damage to the skin, meaning a prop gun does not have the power to shoot something so strongly that it would pierce through your flesh and kill you. So knowing that, think about the lies you've been told about Brandon's death. Brandon was innocently murdered by a real gun by real satanic actors within this industry. After his murder, Brandon Lee was buried next to his father in Lakeview Cemetery in Seattle. His sister Shannon was heartbroken and confused. She moved back to LA in '93 after it happened. Brandon Lee did not have any children to survive him. In fact, when people asked him why he didn't want children, he was afraid that the demons who haunted and possessed him would do the same to his children. Brandon, like his father, had to deal with demons haunting him throughout his life. Even while he did films, there were times he was spiritually attacked by these demons, and he did not want that to happen to his kids. I do not see Brandon Lee going to hell for saying no to Satan. The film The Crow was dedicated to Brandon and his sister Shannon, but why is the answer that will make you sick. It was a warning more to Shannon about what the industry does to people who defy them. It had nothing to do with love. These people do not believe in love. The Crow could have been the film that proved to the world that Brandon was an acting genius, but they stole that from him. Instead, The Crow turned out to be a satanic doctrine film about Illuminati hypocrite beliefs and spirit worship, along with Lucifer's symbolism written all over it, like he was personally signing the movie, being proud of what he did to Brandon. The Crow in satanic doctrine represents Lucifer himself in one of his many forms, and it represents him in the form of death, and it relates to human sacrifice. The influence of this movie is one of fantasy and deception. Many Gothic-style or lonely persons or victims of crime can relate to the feelings Brandon gives in his character regarding his quest for revenge. I believe that justice is for God's direction only, and that nobody, regardless of time, escapes justice. We all have to repent or pay the price for our sins. I do not believe that Lucifer can give us justice when in fact he causes the crimes in the first place. That does not make any sense except to deceive us. Brandon did have a good heart, and he really was against people doing violent and awful things to people. And the film took advantage of someone's good heart and used it for their own evil purposes, like a vampire does to suck blood out of anyone. The movie called The Crow should not be your inspiration. Only Jesus Christ has that right to be. The Crow was a snuff film that used a good-hearted person to sell its deception to the world, and it made millions of dollars in return, even spawning 2 sequels and a TV series, and 3 successful soundtracks with millions sold in t-shirts, Halloween costumes, ball caps, comic books, etc. They made all this money off the death of a person that did not believe in their ways at heart. Brandon was not perfect, and who is when it comes to the human race, but he clearly was not them either. Bruce Lee's last surviving child is his daughter Shannon Lee.